Hey everybody, it's Tim from the University of Vinyl. Welcome back. It feels like it's been forever, but it's only been about a week. I had a horrible cold last week that I am finally just getting over. And I thought it was time to kind of show some new additions to my collection that I have managed to pick up out in the wild. I think everything I'm going to show today has been purchased out at several different used shops that I frequently frequent. And then I have some thoughts on just enjoying your collection. I've managed to kind of dip into some old favorites and gave them some kind of reappraisals. And I have some thoughts about that. So stay tuned for kind of a mixed bag. I have several great additions that I'm very excited to show you guys and ladies if you're watching. According to my stats, 97% of my audience are males. So, ladies, come on, come on. I think the most successful used record shops in America and beyond, they have to be savvy in this day and age, and they need to be using Instagram. Facebook has gone out of favor with many, many, many people, and yes, I know Instagram is owned by Meta, but it seems to be the friendlier, less stressful option as far as social media is concerned, unless you're on TikTok, which I just cannot. I can't. I'm a guy in my 50s. I'm behind a curve on TikTok. I have the app installed. I watch the occasional clip, but my favorite app, of course, my app of choice is Instagram. And like I said, I think used record shops or record shops in general need to be using Instagram. And most of the better ones that I frequent, they are habitual users of Instagram, and they do these daily or weekly flipped videos showing things that they have now have on offer new in stock. You know, they picked up a collection or whatnot, and this is what they have. So when I saw a flip video from one of my favorite new record shops here locally, Driver 8 Records, owned by becoming a good friend of mine, Charles. He had recently shown a Hüsker Dü record. So he actually didn't show this one, but upon investigating further, I found out, well, yes, he did indeed have an original copy, 1984's double album, Zen Arcade. What an amazing piece of work with all three of the Dü members firing on all cylinders for this album. I am particularly taken with Chartered Trips on side one, the Bob Mould masterpiece. This, of course, was produced by Spot on SST, of course, and it's very tricky with SST. They had a few reissues, and up until recently, I think you could actually write to SST. And Greg Ginn of SST, I'm not going to get into it, but the fact that these albums, ah, there have been several reissues of Zen Arcade, many of them on different translucent shades of vinyl. The very first pressing has a particular feature that is a telltale sign. That's a very wide stamp in the label that you can tell. Now, if we can get that close enough, you'll see that that pressing ring is all the way about an inch from the dead wax area. All the others are much closer to the spindle hole. So that is how you can determine an original pressing. Look at this record. Both of these records, near mint condition, not a mark on them, and surprisingly punchy and decent separation of instruments when we're talking about Spot. I'm shocked. But not a bad production on this record, and I was again surprised. But this has been a grail of mine, and thankfully I can stop worrying about this. I have a pristine copy of Zen Arcade. Super happy. But let's not stop with Zen Arcade. Charles also had original pressings of New Day Rising and no barcode on the back. That's how you can tell with this one. This is a fantastic, maybe my favorite Hüsker Dü record. Incredible songs, Celebrated Summer, New Day Rising, the title track. What a huge statement this was in 1985. One of three statements that Hüsker Dü as a band made in 1985. They released 3 albums. Unbelievable. Also picked up an original pressing of Flip Your Wig. This was meant to be the first commercial release on Warner Brothers. The band decided, out of deference to SST and Spot, they released it with SST, and then the next album, Candy Apple Grey, was the debut major label release on Warner Brothers. This sounds actually not too bad as well. It was mastered at Masterdisc by Howie Weinberg. The earlier Dü albums were mastered, I think all of them were done at K-Disc by John Golden, a great mastering engineer, but you only have so much that you can work with. These recordings were done at breakneck speed. Say what you will about Spot. Thankfully, he got this stuff recorded and down and presentable so that mastering engineers could work with the material. But these are not audiophile recordings in any way, shape, or form. But I will say that I was really surprised with the sound of Zen Arcade. I had only had that on CD before. It sounds so much better on vinyl. And I have no experience with the reissues, but I can tell you, if you're looking for a copy, try and get an original press. It sounds absolutely fucking amazing. Speaking of Hüsker Dü originals versus reissues, when I saw that flip video from Driver 8 Records, I kind of put a quick plan together. I basically pulled, I had a reissue of New Day Rising, I had a reissue of Flip Your Wig, and didn't have a copy of Zen Arcade, but we were able to work a really cool trade, so I traded in those reissues, took those original pressings in return, along with some cash as well, that had to be put up. Fair enough. But it worked out super well. I also now have an original pressing of Warehouse Songs and Stories, the final incredibly great double album, a little more poppy, that came out in 1987. I had the Record Day reissue on the fluorescent green and yellow that I traded in as well to Charles. And that was an afterthought. I forgot to bring that in when I did this original trade for those 3 original Hüsker Dü albums I just showed you. So I went back the next day, or maybe it was the day after, and traded in that Warehouse album. Got a very nice kind of credit for that. And saw that Charles had on his racks the follow-up. I believe this was the follow-up to Gold, the Ryan Adams Demolition album. Great record. Sounds amazing. Don't see a lot of Ryan Adams these days on different vinyl community channels. He was kind of canceled several years ago. All I will say is I am really happy to see that Ryan Adams is sober. He is working himself back kind of into shape, working on himself, let's say, and actually doing a run of solo shows this fall. These are 3-hour shows that he's playing 30 songs or more. And I'm happy to see that for Ryan Adams. He is an incredible talent, a flawed individual. No one is perfect, but he had such an incredible run of albums, all the way from Heartbreaker up until his work with the Cardinals and Cold Roses and Jacksonville City Nights, all those great, great, great albums. So I was really super happy to see this album. It's an original pressing on Lost Highway, mint condition. The collection that Charles ran into is just incredible, and he's kind of piecemealing things out. From what I can gather, which is smart. Why put everything out on one weekend? So good for him. But another great album to add to the collection, Ryan Adams' Demolition. 1998, we got, I believe, the third album from Liz Phair, and that is Whitechocolatespaceegg. A great, great, great album. This is the 2017 reissue, spread across 2 different records, 180 gram, really, really nice pressing. Liz Phair is incredibly underrated, very, very important artist in the history of rock and roll. Her 93 album, Exile in Guyville, coming out of Chicago, the incredible music scene that was happening in Chicago in the early to mid to late 1990s. That album really kind of put her on the map and really cemented her as an iconic artist. And I almost pick up everything that she puts out. This is a really, really kind of underrated, under the radar record if you haven't heard this before. Amazing songs like the title track, Whitechocolatespaceegg, Big Tall Man, Johnny Feelgood, Polyester Bride. She did Polyester Bride on the Letterman show, I remember. Many, many, many others. Shitloads of Money, Girls Room. There's a look at the back cover and the track list. But a great album, another great album from Liz Phair. Happy to pick up this 2017 reissue. I've always been a fan of Lloyd Cole, and I never see Lloyd Cole records out in the wild. So when I saw Rattlesnakes with Lloyd Cole and the Commotions, I automatically picked this thing up. Great, great, great condition on Geffen. Perfect Skin is the standout track on this song. Some great guitar work, great lyrics, just a very good overall upbeat vibe to this record. Rattlesnakes and Down on Mission Street, also on side 1. Fine, fine, fine songs. That is Lloyd Cole and the Commotions, Rattlesnakes. Recommended if you could find one. This is something random that I was happy to find, and that is an early 70s, I think 1974 reissue of 7 Steps to Heaven by Miles. Great, great, great album. I believe this was his 8th release on Columbia. 1963. It was comprised of 2 different sessions. One that took place in New York and one in L.A. The great Tony Williams on drums on most of these tracks. Just the incredible cymbal writing that he does. It's just an amazing record. uplifting, peaceful, tranquil, exhilarating. It's a great listen. I heard this playing in a record shop, and about a week later, I went back and picked it up. I had looked at it, and it was in great shape. It's on that Columbia 360 there. But yeah, 1974. I think it's a Terre Haute pressing. Not much money involved in picking this up. And I've given this several spins over the last two weeks. Great record. And maybe underrated in the Miles catalog or overlooked, not sure, but I'm really happy with this record. Remember what I said? It's important to kind of hit your regular haunts on a weekly basis. It's just everything I'm showing is basically stemming from that philosophy. So I am getting lucky and being in the right place at the right time more often than not lately, because I'm just putting the work in, hitting these spots weekly. And there is another shop here locally that came in possession of an incredible collection. This is the cleanest original of Exile that I've come across in the wild. It's a Columbia Pittman pressing. What a record! What a double record this is. I'm going to be doing a kind of an extended video on this as part of my new series, Best in Class, where I'm taking a deep dive on what I think are the best albums ever released. But yeah, this will be an upcoming episode of Best in Class. Artisan stamp on all four sides. Incredible sound. There's these old, kind of old wives' tales. Oh, that was a muddy recording. That was a bad recording. If you have an early pressing, 1971, with the artisan stamp on all four sides, Bob McLeod was the main mastering engineer at Artisan in Hollywood. These Rolling Stones albums, Sticky Fingers, this album, others, they have incredible slam, incredible drive, just enough dirt, and murkiness that you might want on a Rolling Stones album. But these are not, murkiness is the wrong word, but there's an authenticity to these original pressings from the Rolling Stones. They sound absolutely amazing. Between the way that they mic'd the drums to the great sounding the acoustic guitars, the electric guitars, this is what an incredible album this was. Recorded in the south of France. They were using the mobile truck outside of the chateau. It's a famous story. But this specimen included the original cardstock inners that are in great shape. Didn't include those postcards, but usually these things are falling apart. I've got a crisp sleeve on this as well. And this was the Unipack version, so you open up the gatefold, and it's a single envelope right here where your records go in and assorted paraphernalia. But that is the cleanest copy. The record is, both records are in near mint condition. No surface noise, folks. There is no surface noise leading into side 1 and side 2. I am just over the moon with this thing. And like I said, there will be a follow-up video down the road on Exile and Main Street. Okay, I want to talk about some existing records that, for various reasons, I decided to revisit and listen, do some listening. I recently picked up the brand new Robyn Hitchcock album, Shuffle Mania. Highly, highly recommended. I've done a standalone video review of this album, but after listening to this again, and it's a full electric album, it sounds great. Johnny Marr is guesting on this on one or two songs. He's got Kimberly Yu, an original soft boy as well. Highly, highly recommended. But that made me kind of revisit something I hadn't heard in a long, long time. And that is Perspex Island from 1991. This is a great, great, great album. All of those original run of Robyn and the Egyptians albums were released on A&M in the U.S. This is an electro sound pressing. It's also translucent. I just did one of my pressing plant videos on electro sound, and they did a lot of the Quiex 2 releases in the 80s and into the 90s as well, and this was no exception. This is a great album. There were two honorary Egyptians on this album. Peter Buck from REM, of course. He was playing Rickenbacker and probably a Gibson acoustic, or maybe it was a Martin. I'm not sure what he was preferring back in the early 90s. But he was all over this album on most of the songs with that, unmistakable jangle pop that he was able to generate with that Rickenbacker. And then Michael Stipe is on at least one song, and that was She Doesn't Exist. Beautiful song by Robyn Hitchcock. And Stipe is kind of providing background vocal or an accompanying vocal to that song. Great record though. Perspex Island, hard to find on vinyl, but decided to revisit it after listening to the brand new record. At one of the record shows that I attended in late summer, I picked up the UK pressing of the 1984 album, The Big Express from XTC. This actually won an award for sleeve design. This was a concept album by XTC based on their hometown of Swindon and the Great Western Railway. There's a huge, one of the main hubs of the Great Western Railway in Britain goes through Swindon, and they had an old repair facility and kind of a train works. I think it was called Swindon Works. And many songs on this album are about Swindon. They're autobiographical, especially the songs that Andy wrote. And a lot of them have some different themes about trains and travel. It's a really big sounding record, and the previous album was Mummer. They went with more of a, it's interesting, so they laid on a lot of Mellotron. There's a lot of Lin 8 drum loops on this record as well, and other effects, and it's a rockier record than the previous, than Mummer. There's a lot of psych elements on this record as well. I did a ranking record for all of the studio albums about a year ago, and I just kind of discounted Mummer and this album as well because I wasn't as familiar with them. And the more I listened to both of those records, and this one in particular, the more impressed I am. Just everything that they put out, there's something to love. This album, I particularly love Train Running Low on Soul Coal. That is the last track on side 2. It's an autobiographical song by Andy. Legend has it. It's about him, being concerned about kind of losing his creative muse. Maybe, the band XTC was going to break up. And if you listen to the lyrics, there's some interesting elements there to kind of put your head around. But great instrumentation throughout this album. It's got a bigger, rockier sound, of course, than Mummer. A lot of people say Mummer was a pastoral album, which is not 100% correct, but definitely more acoustic leaning than the Big Express. I had a U.S. copy of this and decided to let it go when I got the UK pressing. This thing sounds amazing. There is a little bit of surface noise. I'm going to try and put it through my new Humming Guru and see how that works. But a really, really great sounding record. The other standout track, in my opinion, is the last track on side 1. This World Over. It's about fears of nuclear war back in the early 80s when we had Reagan and Gorbachev before the whole détente. Or maybe it was Reagan and Boris Yeltsin before Gorbachev came on the scene. That's what it was. But This World Over was Andy kind of worried about the Cold War and the threat of nuclear war. He had listened to some of Reagan's speeches in the early 80s, and we got that incredible song from that experience. Okay, last but not least, I decided to give Countdown to Ecstasy another listen. I have a Terre Haute original pressing on the kind of, they call it the Blocks label. That's definitely what you want to see, is you want, on these early ABC albums, you want the black ABC labels. At least for Can't Buy a Thrill and Countdown to Ecstasy. I finally have been hemming and hawing, and I decided to pass on the UHQR for Can't Buy a Thrill. I've got a Terre Haute pressing in pristine condition, and I also have an early True Sound pressing. They both sound great. I'm going to stand pat. Maybe I'll get the double 45 when those come around in 2 years. Who knows? But I just did pull the trigger on the UHQR for this album. This pressing that I have sounds amazing, but this is a particular favorite of mine. I love the Boston Rag and that incredible guitar interplay between Denny Diaz and Jeff Baxter. I think this group of songs, it just hits me. I don't know. It's a personal favorite of mine, and I've decided to pull the trigger. So look for an upcoming review of that UHQR when we get that in early December. And I'm looking forward to putting it kind of through its paces, and I'm fully expecting it to sound amazing based on all the reviews I'm seeing of Can't Buy a Thrill. Hey, thanks for watching, everybody. That is a wrap for today. I'm gonna be working on a video or two this week, so stay tuned. More will be coming. Thanks for watching. Again, thanks for subscribing. If you haven't subscribed, maybe consider subscribing. It will help my channel spread the word. Become an honorary member or honorary student of the University of Vinyl. Consider purchasing a t-shirt or a sweatshirt. Check out the link to my merch that I have available. Everything that you do, whether it's just liking or subscribing the video, much appreciated. Hope everyone has a great day, and I'll be back very soon. Take care.